Winemaking was one of the first technical skills acquired by mankind, before writing, the wheel, and possibly before fire itself. Wine was not invented, it was there, waiting to be discovered.
Wine is the only beverage that has been around since mankind started roaming the earth. It is a beverage that has accompanied mankind throughout all of human history, from remote antiquity in Mesopotamia until today. It has been the beverage of choice of kings, princes, pharaohs, and emperors. The entire history of mankind is written and reflected in wine.
Wine and religion have been joined at the hip since the beginning of time. That's how this beverage spread throughout the world, as a necessary component of sacrifices and offerings. For the Greeks, wine was a gift from Dionysus. The Sumerians had the goddess Geshti, whose name means heavenly vine. In Egypt, Osiris was the god of wine, and the fruit of the vine was called the tears of Horus. The Romans offered wine to Vesta in their hearth and libations to Bacchus. Noah planted a vine after the deluge, and Jesus commemorated his new covenant with wine. Vines have provided prophets and spiritual masters with the inspiration and spiritual lessons since biblical times. Lounging under the shade of this plant was symbolic of happiness, peace, and abundance. For Hebrews, a vine was amongst their most prized possessions and symbolic of security and of the promise of everlasting fruit, prosperity, and lasting rewards.
The history of the grapevine in Antioquia dates to the beginning of the 20th century, when we began experiments with a type of grape called Vitis labrusca, most commonly known as Isabella grapes. It is still common to find in old houses in cities like Medellin, for example, vines that are 80 or 90 years old. History changed completely 7 years ago, when on our own accord we started planting Vitis vinifera, that is, grapevines for the production of wine.
The production of high-quality grapevines and their subsequent transformation into wine has been undervalued in our culture, since Colombia, like other tropical countries, does not have clearly defined seasons, and humidity is high throughout most of its territory. This man, a plastic surgeon by trade and a wine lover since his time living in Sicily, was clear about his life project: to find in the province of Antioquia, Colombia, an area with intense climatic conditions not found in any other wine-producing country, such that they can bring the wine new and unknown elements that can reawaken the mystical and divine relationship between man and vine.
I thought it was incredible that a country like Colombia, which has such a large variety of climates and soils, couldn't have a territory where vines could be cultivated successfully. It never made much sense to me, the explanation always given to us by winemaking countries, that we didn't fit within the production latitudes that they themselves drew up many years ago. The truth is that today, that argument is irrelevant in the context of what we are doing.
Carlos foresaw a promising future for the growth of vines in Antioquia. Although to realize the dream of producing a world-class wine, first he had to conduct an intensive search to find the ideal location.
That is how a research process was begun, looking for the ideal land for vine cultivation in Antioquia, if it existed at all.
After a long and extensive research, and after ruling out many areas of the province, on May 13, 2007, Carlos discovered along a majestic canyon on the Rio Cauca, western Antioquia, a magical place surrounded by sacred mountains overlooking rocky beaches, where you can hear the placid murmur of the river and the animals that inhabit the area. It's what Carlos calls his little piece of heaven on earth.
At that time, it was necessary to conduct further research in order to choose from among the more than 5,000 wine varietals currently known and pick the one best suited for our conditions. After the first experimental vineyard, we planted the vines that we currently have, which are of Italian and French origin.
The following are the red wine grapes cultivated there. Nero de Avola from Sicily, which is one of Italy's most important native red wine grapes and the queen of this vineyard. Malbec and Syrah, both native to France. Of the white grape varieties, you have Chardonnay, a grape used to make high-quality champagnes, as well as Catarratto and Grillo, Italian varieties that are mixed in to bring white wine to life.
We must keep in mind that there are two very different types of grapes. Table grapes, as their name states, are grapes made to be savored for eating, while the wine grape is a grape that has a much higher sugar content, and it contains much greater concentrations of polyphenols.
People in the region thought it was insane to bring to a virgin and rugged land a crop that none of the farmers in the area knew how to work, and that no one thought had any future whatsoever. In the town, we used to say that this man was crazy. How could you grow grapes in this climate, in this tiny town? But look at it now.
When Don Carlos arrived here, people thought that the idea of growing grapes would probably not work out. Grapes were grown in Sopetran, but white grapes, large ones, not of the type to make wine. So when Don Carlos arrived here, people were skeptical that it would work, but until now, it has worked out very well.
For Carlos, the realization of this stream has been full of immense rewards, which motivate him daily to persevere on the long path still ahead of him.
I think that the vine is as happy here as in other countries, and the proof is that we are producing an excellent quality grape. Proof is the gold medal that we just won at a prestigious international wine contest. Throughout our history, we have been gradually perfecting our vine growing and winemaking protocols. That is, techniques to grow vines under our conditions and how to make wine under our conditions.
This is an organic farm, and labors such as pruning, planting, and harvesting are done following a special calendar, which takes into account the effect of the plants of the phases of the sun and moon. This is known as biodynamics. This movement is inspired in the anthroposophical theories of philosopher Rudolf Steiner, who says that human beings should neither manipulate nor hinder nature's own rhythms. particularly in agriculture, since in this world the mineral, vegetable, and animal kingdoms are intertwined in a perfect and autonomous way. The role of man should be to conserve the natural balance between these kingdoms, caring for the vitality of the earth without depending on external elements, relying instead on those that are generated in nature itself, in this case, the vineyards.
From the moment we plant the vine up until the moment we harvest the first crop, there are undoubtedly a series of cultivating parameters that must be adhered to. First is training, which drives the shape we are going to give the future plant. Generally, we work with what is known as a simple cordon spore system. You give the plant a turn of approximately 90 degrees starting at the stem, keeping track of the future ramification of the plant. These cordons are where the spurs will grow, which will bear the fruit that will be harvested. These branches have these buds, so leave just one bud. Cut them all down to one bud. With pruning, we can control the amount of grapes we are going to grow, and it's important to think in terms of quality and not quantity. You have to first apply proper fertilizing treatment. We use 100% organic fertilizer, and this will undoubtedly be reflected in our crop, the grapes that will be used to make wine. You also have to take into account the spraying that is preventively applied to the plant. These sprayings are done in order to prevent the outbreak of diseases caused by fungus, which are fortunately rare in this environment. It can also control other types of pests that can affect the crop, like ants, which sometimes attack the green parts of the plant. Weather is key in the cultivation of grapevines. We need a climate that is preferably dry during the time the grapes are ripening. Without a doubt, when the weather is dry, the grape will ripen with greater intensity. The sugar content and the concentration of polyphenols is greater, and this will undoubtedly be reflected in the quality of this year's crop.
One of the goals of this project has been to promote the comprehensive development of the town of Olaya.
This project was designed to be transferred from generation to generation. This is not the type of project that will end in one generation. I think that this is the showcase project in this region. This is a poor region where job opportunities are not available. And I think that in the near future, this project will become a development anchor for this region.
It's great because a lot of people work here. A lot of people. Many families eat because of this work.
I have a stable job because of grapes, to pay for raising my family and sending the kids to school. I feel very happy to work here in this vineyard.
This is what I have to take care of. I like it. I love it. And I like learning about it.
After the settling of the fruit cluster, it goes through a series of changes. The cluster initially takes on a sharp green hue. In reality, it behaves like an additional leaf. The cluster is also breathing, and photosynthesis is taking place in the cluster. And as the fruit cluster begins to mature, the grape's green color begins to change. It's the period we call veraison. when dark burgundy spots begin to appear on the cluster's green berries. Gradually, the cluster will acquire this type of color. Finally comes the ripening stage, which is when the sugar and polyphenol loads of the already dark cluster begin to rise. That is when we measure pH, Brix degrees, and titrable acidity, in order to determine the exact time we're going to harvest that cluster, and that is called vintage.
I didn't even know what a cluster was. When I started working here, I cut off a cluster down in the lower part. Then the boss told me, "Not that. That is the cluster." And I went, "Oh, so that's how you learn."
The process that we are doing right now, for example, is the vintage, which is the picking of the grapes, which we have been working on for so many months. And when we harvest it, we feel a type of satisfaction of picking the product that you started working on for so long, about 4.5 months. I like how after a month and a half, the buds begin to break, and then comes the flowering. That looks very beautiful.
Well, what I like to do most is to pick them.
The grapevine is an extremely sensitive plant. They are capable of picking up on the emotions of the people around them, and they can retransmit them to their fruits, which will become wine in the future.
She's from the town of Liborina. She is the best friend I have. Yes, always. We get along great. Whenever we work, we always work together. We don't separate because we understand what we are doing. We have fun doing what we're doing. And Don Diego always puts us together, see? So there we are, the two of us. Yes, we share everything. Except our husbands. Except our husbands.
I had never seen a cluster of grapes or a plant like this, and so far, I think this crop is great. You have to take into account that the clusters of a wine grape are very small. A lot of people think that the larger the cluster, the better the quality, and that is not true. The truth is that we see clusters in the 120-150 gram range, and it is those very small clusters that will surely bring us the quality we seek.
Back in the vineyard, after loading the first pick of grapes in the basket, they must be gently transported to the sorting table. There, a group of women are tasked with choosing the grapes that meet the required parameters. After the red grapes have been selected, comes the alcoholic fermentation stage, which begins with a mechanical crusher and destemmer. This machine first removes the rachis, that is, the stem attached to the grape. Secondly, it squeezes out the juice. This juice, which remains in contact with the skin, is called the must. The juice is carefully disinfected and inoculated with selected yeasts. They will transform sugars into ethyl alcohol and other elements, also releasing carbon dioxide. As the must remains in contact with the grape solids, it will extract from them tannins and color from anthocyanin. The carbon dioxide produced pushes grape skins up where they form a cap on the surface, which must be continuously stirred so that the extraction of color and other elements continues. This process will be performed for a specific period of time and at a specific temperature depending on the type of wine being made. After this comes the pressing, malolactic fermentation, aging, and finally bottling.
I think that for me, wine is almost part of my blood, and with it, obviously grapes as well. In my life, wine represents an important part of my being. Do I like wine? Of course I do. The wine here is excellent.
The Nero is very good. I've tasted the grapes here, but not the wine. The Nero, I've tried the Nero de Avola. The Malbec is the best. It's pricier, but more delicious.
Jorge Luis Borges, the famous Argentine writer, said that if he were to be reborn, among the things he would like to do again in life would be to sit down and drink a glass of wine.
We're very honored in the town of Olaya because for the boss to win a gold medal for a crop that people never imagined could be done here.
To the region, it has brought tourism and also jobs for the people from this area. Leading a project like this in an area where no one thought it was possible, well, truthfully, it's a dream come true.